because all of these CRM tools are focused on deals and pipeline and not people. That was the failing point of every single one that I tried.
Hey everybody, today I am so excited to be joined by a longtime social media friend, first time or new time in real life friend, Sunny Hunt. If you don't know Sunny, she's been a customer advocate for over 20 years throughout her career, and she's always looking to put this customer at the center of every marketing conversation and strategy. I think this is why we get along so well. She's primarily known for helping service selling companies design easy to love online experiences that attract, convert, and keep profitable customers. Sunny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brooke. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited because I feel like we've been like social media friends for 1,000 years.
Yeah, right.
And now we get to be like, I guess it's not IRL, but like off social onto virtual friends. We're virtual friends now. Yeah.
The only thing missing is a hug now, like an in-life hug.
Yes, we need to make that happen at some point soon.
This year.
Yes, please, this year.
That's a goal.
Very excited to talk to you because I think we both have so much love for the customer, and I think a lot of agency owners in the talks that I've been having are having a lot of customer centric thoughts and conversations. So I know what you're going to say today is going to be valuable for everyone. But let's start with the first question, which is, what made you decide to go out on your own and start your own agency?
That is always an interesting question. Honestly, I kind of fell into it. It wasn't an intentional decision. So my corporate job wasn't going very well. And honestly, I decided to up and leave without having anything else lined up behind it. So, when someone leaves a corporate job and they don't have anything lined up, it's usually kind of a bad indicator that something didn't go right.
Yeah, I would assume.
Just for anybody peeking, that job is not on my LinkedIn profile, so you're not going to find it.
Darn it.
So for all you stalkers out there, it's not there. But when I decided to leave without having anything lined up, I thought to myself, I don't really know what's next. Maybe I will just take some time off and kind of feel everything out and recenter myself. And then literally later that same day, a friend popped up into my inbox and said, "Hey, we have this startup and we need some marketing help. Are you available to come help us?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. Can we meet tomorrow?" So from there, I started consulting, and then everything just kind of expanded and grew in order to fill capacity. So it's I just fell into it without really being intentional about it. I'm not sure if that's exactly the best way to start an agency, but that's what happened.
I don't think there's a best way or a right way, because that's the story I feel like I hear a lot on this show. It's like, you're like, it just kind of happened. People leave their jobs or they go back to work, but there wasn't work, and there is no right or wrong way. So I appreciate that story and that side of it. Now, what kind of clients are you servicing today? Because we talked about service selling companies, but what does that look like? What does that mean?
So the types of companies and really the industries that we really help are tech companies, specifically more SaaS companies or tech forward companies. And we've also collected a pretty impressive roster of healthcare companies as well as home services companies. So on the surface, it seems like this really interesting mix of companies, but there's actually a lot of overlap. So everybody is really trying to focus on making sure that they're doing right by their customers. They're focused on customer journeys and filling those success gaps. And so we help our customers or our clients connect their customer insights or why their customers buy to gaps in their customer journeys, and then help them create practical marketing strategies so that they can go through and fill those gaps so that their customers have more incentive to stay for a longer period of time.
Well, obviously, I resonate to that. So that's amazing. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about like going from breadth to depth in your networking. And when we were having this pre-call conversation, I just thought you had so much great advice about how to look at networking, because I think sometimes it can be a dirty word. Sometimes it can be viewed as something that is fluffy, right? It doesn't result in something. And I think just based off your story of being like, I kind of pieced out and then started my own thing tells me that you've got the type of insights that people are going to be wanting to hear and watch. So kind of run us through the moment that you decided to shift your networking strategy and to go from breadth, which if you're thinking about a circle, dear audience, breadth would be the outside of the circle, right? You're going around that circle. But Sunny changed her networking and going into depth, meaning she went into the layers in that circle versus around the outside layer. So what prompted you to kind of change your thinking?
So I started changing the way that I was approaching networking and relationship building probably at the end of 2023. 2023 for a lot of agencies was really hard, especially if you work with tech companies, right? Like lots of layoffs, lots of upheaval. The seasonality that we as agency owners depended on got completely upended. It was just a lot. And I was really tired. Around Christmas time, over the holidays, I had all of these things that I wanted to do to work on the business and to really kind of hit the ground running in January. And then I was like, no, I'm just tired. Like what we're doing right now isn't working. Like we need to change things up, need to do something a little bit differently. And I took a step back and looked at everything that we were doing. And the signal to noise ratio was just wild. There was so much noise and very little signal in the things that we were doing. And I decided that something needed to change. So I looked at the business and really took a look at where all of the leads came from and realized that most of the leads that came into the business that were valuable leads came from people that we knew, came from relationships that we already had, or came from new relationships that were on the way to becoming something more and becoming more of a deeper relationship. And when I say relationship, I'm not talking about like, I'm going to go out and date somebody, but I'm talking about like getting to know people and knowing that they have a dog and what their dog's name is, and that they have kids, or that they have these social obligations that they're really interested in, or they have a volunteering aspect to their lives that they feel very passionate about, but getting to know them as people and not just as a means to an end. So not networking for the sake of getting a lead and getting a new client, but networking for the sake of learning more about people and to be curious and to really kind of investigate who these people are, what makes them tick, and how I, as a human, can support another human in their journey. So whatever that journey happens to look like, whether that's a business journey or a personal journey or a journey of questioning or deconstruction, whatever that happens to look like. So because my agency is really focused on intentionally staying small, and we're not selling like $997 courses like to 1,000 people, we don't need thousands and thousands of leads a year. We only need a few really good solid leads every year. So that kind of taking a look at all of that and kind of stepping back and really kind of taking a look at the big picture made me realize that we can't continue to be broad in our networking approach. We need to be focused in our networking approach and primarily being led by curiosity instead of a business goal or a transaction. So that's kind of why and how I started changing our focus on the way that I personally approach networking.
Yeah, so it sounds like depth means it's like networking to the relationship building power. I mean, networking is relationship building, but you're right. I think a lot of times when we're networking, right, especially from like a sales point of view, we're doing things like saying, oh, I have to have this many calls a week, or I need to go to this many networking events a month. I need to have this many leads in my pipeline. So that's breadth, in your opinion. And how would you define depth without like relationship building, right? Like what does depth mean in context for networking for your agency?
It's about starting conversations and expanding on those conversations. So keeping track of who's doing what, why they're doing it. And again, it's about investing in the people behind those conversations and not necessarily a conversation that's focused on a transaction. So
Yeah.
for me, that means more time with fewer people, but being very intentional about the people that I choose to spend my time with.
Really smart. And how do you decide? What are some of the indicators? Like, let's pretend you and I are meeting at a networking event and we're having a conversation. What indicators or triggers do you look for where you're saying to yourself, oh, Brooke sounds like someone I want to deepen the relationship with? How do you focus on those identifiers, or what are those?
Honestly, it's a gut feeling. And I really like to be more specific. It's a little bit tough to be more specific. But the things I generally look for are passion. When you're talking about something, do your eyes light up? Do you get really excited about something? Do you find yourself maybe even apologizing because you've gone down this rabbit hole of something you feel very passionate about, right? That is an indicator to me that you have a passion for something and you want to find support in that particular area, and that I might be able to provide that support as a way of building a relationship. And again, not for the sake of sale, but for the sake of just being a human and being a good person who likes people and is genuinely curious about what other people like and motivates them.
This sounds like it could also be like really good advice for dating.
Sure.
I'm not in the dating scene anymore, but I'm like, oh my gosh, you could totally use this. No, this makes so much sense because I'm one of those people. I feel like I have to apologize sometimes because I get super excited and passionate about what I'm talking about. And then, like, my voice raises 10 octaves and I'm talking like this with my hands way up here. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have to nerd out for 1 second. Right. So I get exactly what you're talking about. Are there challenges though? Like, what if I get all excited and I'm giving you those indicators, but maybe I'm like the worst person ever? Are there challenges that happen when you try to go deep versus broad?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes your values don't align. So if somebody feels very strongly about one thing that you feel very strongly about the opposite, maybe that's an indicator that you are not going to have a good relationship, especially if those are foundational values around, like, for instance, like politics is going to be a hot one this year.
Sure.
Human rights may be another one. Again, something that's top of mind this year that's really kind of popped up in the news. So if you find yourself on the opposite sides of something that you feel very strongly about, maybe that's a signal that there might not be a good fit for you to pursue a deeper relationship with. But that's true in business, that's true in personal life, true also in dating. So it's all about finding that good fit, finding that excitement, finding that passion, but also making sure that your values are aligned.
Yeah.
And you have to be listening for those little cues over time. Usually there are statements or positions that people make, or that would indicate that you're just not on the same wavelength, certain things.
I talk about this a lot in my book, actually. It's from a social theory that was from the 1970s. And the name of the theory, it's terrible, but we'll call it something else. It's called the social penetration theory. It's awful, I know. So we'll just call it the onion theory. But essentially what it says is we build relationships through self-disclosures. And essentially what you're saying, which is, as humans, we are trying to identify someone else's core values, even if they're a brand, right? What are the brand's core values? And how can we align with that? Or do we align with that? Or do we remove ourselves from that? And so I think this is I'm nerding out already because this is like literal science, right? There's science that it talks about exactly what you're saying. So how does it look when you're measuring this? So you're having, I'm guessing, like several conversations that are more in depth. You've got these signals that are happening. The intent seems to be there, or the interest is there. Is the intent there? I'm not sure. But what do you use to measure a more breadth, not depth, oriented networking strategy?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm not sure that I have a really good answer for you. Measuring breadth instead of depth.
Yeah. So like if you feel like the person who you're going deeper with on the networking and it's going well, like what tells you it's going well? And how do you know when it does go from deep conversation to a potential business partnership or relationship?
I think that the first step in deepening the relationship is that, like you mentioned, exchanging insights that give and disclosures about yourself, your values, your worldview, that type of thing. But the thing that's really a big indicator for me is reciprocity. So, in as much as I'm interested in that person and what makes them tick, they at some point turn the coin or flip the coin over and start asking me about what makes me tick and what I'm interested in. And once you have that reciprocity, you start getting more of a balanced type of relationship that allows you to not only assess that you're on the same wavelength and that you share similar values, but that you are willing and okay to deepen that relationship and maybe disclose something that's even more personal. Or maybe you start at that point talking about your hopes and fears, which tends to be really sensitive, or even asking for a small favor at that point in order to assess whether or not that is indeed where the relationship is going.
Oh, that's so interesting. I like the asking for a favor example. So we met at this networking party. We had this great conversation. There's, interest on both sides. And then maybe this actually did happen. I mean, well, not the real world scenario, but like I emailed you and I said, hey, will you do me a favor and be a guest on the show? That was me saying, will you do me a solid, right? Like,
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? It's just like little favors like that. Or like, hi, I saw that you wrote about the onion theory in your blog, Sunny. I would be ever so grateful if you could link to my book, which talks about that in depth. Something like that. Is that what you mean by a favor?
Yeah, it's just a small ask. It's not a huge lift. It's not disclosing any of your personal secrets or asking to use up a lot of your social capital, but maybe it's something along the lines of, that book is really interesting to me. Would you recommend that I either have the audiobook or like read the audiobook, or would I read the physical book? And maybe that person offers, you know what? I have a hard copy of it. Why don't I lend it to you?
Yeah.
Something along those lines, something that's not a big ask or a big lift or ask somebody to overextend themselves too far initially, but maybe it's something even as small as, like the book example, or would you be willing to look over a blog post that I'm writing and give me your thoughts? Or I have a sales pitch that I'm preparing for this particular prospect. Would you mind, since you have this particular perspective and this experience, would you mind giving it a once over and letting me know what you think from your perspective? Or if you identify any gaps or anything. So maybe it's something as small as that.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying now, because you mentioned, obviously, you work in healthcare and you do some work with SaaS companies and home services. So if I were pitching a SaaS company, I might come to you and say, I value our friendship. We have a lot of the same values. And I have this pitch deck that I'm looking to present to a SaaS company. And I know you have a lot of experience with SaaS companies. Would you mind taking a look and letting me know what you think? What am I missing? Give me constructive feedback. I love that example.
Yeah. And my response would be, I'd be happy to. How spicy do you want the feedback? Do you want it like
all
1-star spicy or like 10-star spicy?
10-star spicy. I'm from the South. We like our food spicy, This is great. This is great. And so what has been I'm sure this has had a great impact, right? Like you started doing this in 2023, you said. Can you name specifically any of the tangible shifts or outcomes or successes that have come from kind of shifting to this viewpoint?
Yeah. Number one is I have friends now, which is great.
Friends are
coming
good.
Coming out of the last 4 years, I think everybody's relationships have taken like a really big hit. And as we know, finding friends as an adult, the older you get, the harder it is. Primarily because we value our time alone, but we also have a lot of other obligations between family and houses and pets and like all this other stuff. But being intentional about who you're talking to and who you're building a relationship with. If I got into trouble or I knew I needed a shoulder, I have a group of trusted people that I can reach out to who I know would help me. And that gives me a lot of confidence. And it also really helps me build my business, because if I need that outside perspective on something that I'm doing or something that we're trying, I can ask for that neutral third party perspective from somebody who's not inside the business and has a completely different experience set. So there's been a lot of really valuable things that come out of this. And we've also just signed a new client from one of these relationships. So that was really fun. And so we're actually seeing, and it wasn't something that I asked for. It was oh, by the way, I mentioned, or I met somebody who I think you need to be introduced to. Let me make that introduction and see where it goes. So it's actually, it's been beneficial all the way around.
That resonates with me because I'm a connector. I love connecting people. And I think that's part of what you're saying, right? Part of this deeper relationship building, or, networking 2.0, is figuring out ways you can connect people. And you made me think while you were talking just now about, I've been part of a mastermind group for years now, which is wonderful. But I also, this year, we started a Women Supporting Women group with some of my fellow speaking female marketers, and literally all we're trying to do is support one another, get on more stages, get more jobs, get seen, become better known. So is that a tip of yours, is to find these, I mean, honestly, they're private groups, right? They're not even on social. Is it to find groups like that, or what would your advice be for people who are watching or listening to deepen their own existing or maybe yet to exist professional relationships?
I think you need to be intentional about cultivating these relationships. So I have blocked out a couple of hours in my work calendar every week in order to reach out to people and reconnect with people and touch base with them and see what's up and see what's new. But I'm being very intentional about who it is that I connect with, making sure that I'm keeping notes about who is doing what, because I have a finite amount of brain space right. And I can't keep track of everything. So I have to keep tabs, or I have to take notes on everybody. And it's not me being a stalker or being creepy. It's about being held accountable to the things that I value and that are important to me. I want to make sure that I remember who's doing what and who's really passionate about what. And if I need a tool in order to do that, then that's fine. That's what I'm going to do. But really focusing on just building those relationships. And like you said, making those cross introductions. I just had coffee this morning with somebody that a friend of mine introduced me to, and she's amazing. And I want to continue those relationships, and I want to continue our conversation. And in fact, she is coming to like a group dinner that we're having this week. So that's just another example of when you find those interesting people that align with your values, kind of bringing them into the fold and introducing them to the other people who are close in your network and close in your little tight-knit, smaller communities, so that their relationships can deepen and be better as well.
Getting deep here. I really like this.
I know.
I have so many questions, but I think just going off of what you said, I'm interested in knowing about tools, right? So what tools, platforms, CRM, because you've got to be keeping these notes somewhere. Because like you said, like my little brain, it's so funny. Like I can tell you what bird is singing across the woods, by its voice, but I couldn't tell you what I had for lunch today, right? So what tools do you use to help facilitate the deeper networking that you're doing?
So I spent a lot of time looking for a CRM tool in order to help me do this. And I tried probably a half dozen, and I abandoned every single one of them because all of these CRM tools are focused on deals and pipeline and not people. That was the failing point of every single one that I tried. So I found one which was also introduced to me by a friend, and it's called Dex. And the website is getdex.com. And it is a CRM that's focused on people and relationships and not sales. So I've been using that, and it's been connected to my email and to my LinkedIn and to my phone contacts. And it pulls everybody together so that I can keep one record for every individual and keep track of what they're doing and how they're doing. And I can go through and look at the record and see in my calendar when we had lunch or when we had a coffee date or when we last spoke, so that I can keep track of what people are doing and making sure that it's holding me accountable, that plus my calendar blocking, in order to reach out and to make sure that I'm still kind of nurturing these relationships. But you have to be intentional about it.
I got to get nosy here for a second, okay?
Yeah.
You said that you block off time in your calendar, right? So I'm right. What I'm trying to do, I think, just so you know, and you too, listener or watcher, I'm trying to like figure out what your process is. So you said you block time in your calendar every week.
Yeah.
Then you use this people-focused CRM, GetDex, to keep track of all of your people when y'all chatted, and then how does it go from there? Like, are you starring people, or are you setting up follow-up times, or does it automatically do that for you? Or like, can I be nosy and you just tell me like what that looks like a little bit more process-wise?
Yeah. I set up reminders. So certain people get reminders set for checking in every month. Some people get reminders to check in every 3 months. Some people get every 6 months. It just kind of depends on the closeness of our relationship or how close we want a relationship to actually be. So I do that. And then during that time block, I make sure to reach out and connect with all of those people. The tool Dex really just kind of holds me accountable to making sure that I am making those connections and reinforcing those relationships over time. It's something that I've been really trying to do. I've really been crappy at it up until this year. And this year, I have been intentionally more open to the idea of building relationships. And I'm just trying to get like my vibes right to make sure that I'm open to the opportunities and making sure that I nurture them when they do appear. I also have a special Calendly link that I give to close friends, so they can just drop time on my calendar whenever they need something. So they have certain like bigger blocks of availability, but those really close relationships, when people get stuck, because we all get stuck and we all need that like sanity check or that gut check in order to kind of pull us out and to be able to see what's really going on. So I give that Calendly link to my close friends so that they can drop time on my calendar whenever they need it. And it's usually like a 15-minute meeting, but that's usually enough time to get unblocked or to just say, hey, look, I really just need your eyes on this. Tell me that I'm not crazy. I've been gaslighting myself. Like, help me get straight on this. Is this really a problem, or am I just making a big deal about it? Or can you check this before I send this off to a client? Just making sure that everything's good and kosher and that everything's buttoned up the way that it should be. It's been really helpful.
I love that you're saying this because, funnily enough, I did something similar this year. I think I went at it from more of a sales perspective than you did, but it's been great. Is I set up a 15-minute like networking meet and greet, whatever you want to call it. Because previously it was always 30 minutes. And then sometimes I guess I just wanted to protect my time more. So I came at it from a totally different angle than you have. But I really like the 15-minute ask me anything, do me, ask me for a favor, do me a solid kind of thing. I really like that a lot because it allows you to keep networking, but it also allows you said earlier, to make sure my vibes were right. It allows you a shorter period of time to understand if the vibes are right between you and that person, and then you could set up more time together, right? I know this is not how you look at it because I'm coming at it from a sales perspective, but I really like that a lot because it's not closing yourself off completely. It's just going like, we're gonna get the vibes done in less than 30 minutes, in 15 minutes.
Yes. Vibe check complete.
Any tips for that vibe check, by the way? Is it all just the gut and the core values, or are there any other vibe checks?
If I have red flags for potential clients, and that's just based on history, but for a different type of relationship or that more extended personal relationship building, if somebody is really demanding or demands some, like my time, or insists on making a connection for them or an introduction for them, or if they're too eager or if their ask is too big initially, that kind of throws a red flag for me. Additionally, if they don't ask me any questions about me, if there's no reciprocity there, that also is a red flag for me. And then if they continually name drop, like, I know so-and-so, or I know this person, or I know this other person. For me, that's not a values alignment. So that throws a medium pink-ish flag, not necessarily a red flag, but like it's something to pay attention to moving forward. But those are kind of the big things. Everything else we can kind of move forward with or explore a little bit more in future conversations.
Yeah. The orange cone, I love that. Like orange flag, orange cone.
There you go.
Like it's a caution moment, but we're not to red flag yet. I have some of those too.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about just having more friends, which was good. But how else has focusing on these deeper networking relationships helped you with your personal growth as it turns into professional? So as a leader or as a marketer?
I think these relationships have really opened my eyes to a lot of different perspectives. And because everybody has different experiences and different views on the world and has grown up in different circumstances, it has provided a richer format for me to learn and explore more about myself. And, as we get into a certain age, we tend to be a little bit more reflective, and we kind of look forward to what like the next 10 years, the next 15 years, the next 20 years really has for us, and being more prescriptive about what we want and what we don't want versus kind of more of a laissez-faire attitude that we had in our 20s. Just kind of like, oh, I'm just kind of like rolling through life, figuring it out as I go. But those additional experiences and the different lenses that people view the world through really help me become more educated about my own views and the education that I have and that I still need to attain, so that I can just become a better person, a more well-rounded person who's maybe not as judgmental as I have been in like my 20s, and definitely a lot less angry than I have been like in my teens and my 20s.
Yeah.
So just a more well-rounded individual, I think.
Well, I like that you use the word reflective too, because that brought up something for me. I guess one of my vibe checks, and I'm guessing it's yours too, which I'll lead to, but people who are introspective, I really seem to align with. People who don't have a lot of self-awareness, that's like one of my vibe check red flags. Would you say you are similar in that way, or do you view it differently?
Absolutely. And it's a big red flag for me, is a lack of empathy. If you are unable to try to empathize with somebody who is in a completely different situation than you, and maybe extend the benefit of the doubt, even if you don't know that person. So if you see someone walking by on the street and they're a little maybe disheveled and they're pushing a cart full of their belongings, if you cast judgment on that person instead of saying, I wonder what happened that got them to that place, or I wonder if there's something I could do to help them, or I wonder if there's a situation that we need to be addressing at a larger scale than just this one individual in order to do something. Like, if that lack of empathy is missing, then that is a big red flag for me.
Yeah, agreed. Networking is fun until you run into people who maybe aren't reflective, like you said, or just don't have a lot of self-awareness.
It's a great filter. I would honestly rather have those filters and those flags come up earlier rather than later, just so that you know that you're not investing your time. You're not going to be disappointed later on. So making sure that everybody's in agreement. And if somebody isn't, maybe we just stay acquaintances and we don't really deepen the relationship. We say hi to each other when we run into each other, either at events or online or something like that. But that's probably as far as it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So as you continue to focus on deepening your networking relationships, are there any future strategies or plans that you have to take the approach further? Like now that you're having this process and you're getting into the tools, have things come to light that you feel will help you moving forward?
I am realizing that there's a limit to how many people I can maintain relationships with, and that I really need to be selective about who, I don't want to use this term, but I'm going to use it in this context, even though it sounds really harsh, who make the cut, as it
Yeah.
were, just because I'm a single person and I don't scale, right? Like my time is finite and there's only so much of me to go around. And at the same time, I still actually have a mortgage to pay, right? And I have to buy groceries. So I do actually have to get some work done at some point. But at the same time, making sure that I still prioritize these relationships and that I still prioritize my curiosity and I still prioritize my availability for the people who I've chosen to kind of bring into my little inner circle.
Yeah. What, for anyone who's watching or listening, and maybe they've been the numbers game person, right? I mean, I'll admit it. I've had that viewpoint from time
Same.
to time because I'm in sales, right? This is what we do.
Yeah.
But say they have that viewpoint and they're listening or watching and they're thinking, oh, wow, I should really work on going, inside of the circle instead of around the outside of it. What would be your best advice?
Start small. Start with 2 or 3 people and see if you personally get results or fulfillment from investing in 2 or 3 individual relationships. And see how they grow and how they nurture and see what comes out of it. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, maybe you're supposed to be a numbers person. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different approach. And like you said, I was that person for a while. I was chasing a whole bunch of numbers and trying to build a bigger audience. And now I'm not so focused on building a bigger audience. I'm focused on building a better audience for me.
Yes. Yes. I say this all the time from stage. Stop building a follower base and start building a customer base, right?
Yes.
Which is kind of like what we're talking about, but from the sales perspective. And the other tip I have too is back when I worked in nonprofit, we used to call it marketing in threes. So if I was deepening the relationship with Sunny and we got to this wonderful place, I may say to Sunny, hey, who are 3 other people you think that I would really get along with? And can you make introductions? And maybe 3 is too big. Maybe that's too numbers focused. So maybe it's just one other person. So once you build that relationship with those people you start with, then you start saying, hey, who else do you think I would love in your network? Who would I connect with?
Yeah. And that can be your initial little ask too.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So good. We've just laid out the whole process. So hopefully if you've been following along, you've written it down. If you haven't, just hit that rewind button and follow the steps we've outlined. Sunny, this has been so amazing. And I want people to connect with you with intention. So tell us, what are you working on? Where can we find you? How can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my social channel of choice since Twitter just kind of imploded on itself. I was an OG Twitter user for a long, long time and no more. So
sad.
You can find me on LinkedIn. And if you want to connect with me, please do send me a note and let me know that you heard this podcast and that you are interested in learning more either about how to do this for yourself or the tools we mentioned or a different approach, or just to say hi and that you would be interested in connecting. But add the note.
Yes. Thank you. Please send a note when you connect with people, y'all, because there's just too many scammy, salesy stuff happening. And if you don't send a note, and what's funny, a lot of times the salesy people send the note.
Yeah.
But just anyway, send the note. Send the note.
Yeah. Unless you want to pitch me on something, then just don't connect with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
good.
Thanks.
I'm good.
Oh, well, this has been amazing. I'm super excited to see what people think and just to take some of your tidbits, like the favor asking, into my own networking strategies. Everyone, we will see you next time. Bye, Sunny.
Bye.